What's up, everyone? Hey, y'all. This is BMORE, and I'm here to start talking about the retrograde and, the planets in Libra. All right, let me stop messing around. BMORE will be starting the show soon. Hey, y'all. So we have a lot of stuff to get into this week. I'm just gonna pull out my notes real quick. I was like, now I know I'm good. So like, because it is. Because it is.
Is this you on this page?
Yeah. Here it is.
Okay.
Alrighty.
Look at this beautiful slide BMORE did too.
I
All
know.
of that nice work.
I tried to give y'all visuals because, to be fair, it is very easy, like, trying to explain this to y'all just on, like, verbals. I understand some people learn really good this way, but not everyone does. Not everyone does. So I tried to just create some visuals so when people see certain things, one, it keeps their attention, but also two, it helps them to understand what we're talking about and what we're looking at. So yeah, this week we will be talking about like all these planets going into retrograde, but also the planets that aren't in retrograde, what they do, but also how to plan using the planets, how to use the planets to properly make schedules, to properly formulate the week, the work week, what's intended, how you're supposed to move around as per, I guess you could say, the request or the power of the planets. So I do have some stuff on that. What planetary planning is. We will be going over just a little bit of stuff about next week. Next week, it's a new moon in Virgo, so we'll be just lightly touching over that and why you would need to actually plan. You would actually have to plan and just pay attention to your surroundings and what's going on, so you can actually make the best out of the situations that are coming, because you can't really control what happens, but you can control how you maneuver through things that are happening. So I'll start. So planetary planning, we have retrograde, a lot of retrogrades. We have at least, let me see, 1, 2, 3, at least 4 or 5 planets that are retrograding simultaneously at the same time. Not a bad thing, not a good thing. I guess it depends on how you view retrogrades and also what you're going to do with the energy. So, what are we going to be learning today? Today, we are going to be learning to plan with ease and learn how to flow with the energy or the nature of the universe. That is what we're going to be doing today. We will be talking about 5 points. The first point is planetary days, days of the weeks that have been ruled by certain planets, and what does that entail? You also have planetary hours, so hours that are ruled by certain planets as well. That one, okay, once you get done planetary days, the next obvious thing will be planetary hours. But to be fair, just getting the basics of getting what day is ruled by what day, you're kind of already ahead of the curve. So I think that will be a good starting point when trying to map. But just as long as you get the planetary days part down, you're fine. If you want to add some extra stink and do planetary hours, which it can be overwhelming, so just knowing those exist can help, because you can, I guess, confer. So we'll touch back on that. But you know, for most people, I think most of the people that will come in and watch this either later, or most of the people that will watch the rerun, because I have a lot of people who watch like the playback. Everyone's not gonna everyone might get a little confused. I don't think everyone will be able to do planetary hours, because I actually can feel like some of y'all might get confused or overwhelmed by it. So don't feel pressured to feel like you should have that on lock. Just get the planetary days down. The next one is journaling. We'll be talking about the importance of journaling and keeping track of ourselves, seeing what's happening on a day-to-day basis. The next point is making an itinerary. So after we have been tracking the things that we've been doing on a consistent basis, then we will move over to making an itinerary. No, you can make one, but you ain't gonna get really the best out of it until you set in with your whole little chart and seeing how it reacts to certain planets. And then the last one, we'll be talking about just some transit talk. So we'll be talking about the transits, what's happening. We'll be talking again just lightly on the new moon about next week, because next week we'll get deeper into the new moon in Virgo. But we'll just be lightly just skimming over certain things. So it's a good time to actually just try to pay attention before we just jump into that. Okay. Planets own certain days. Each day is dominated by certain planetary powers. So, and when I mean certain days, I mean classical planets. So these would be the original 7. So the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn. All of those have certain days that they dominate. And these will be the rulers of the day. So you will have very strong themes that center around whatever day of the week it is. I know most people kind of just have the vibe of like, oh, today is Thursday, it's ruled by Thor or like a deity. Today is Sunday, it's ruled by the sun, yada yada yada. But this still rings true in astrology, and you can make a schedule based off of these days. Technically speaking, your work schedule is high key, low key based off of this whole schedule, but each day is owned by a certain planet, and each planet has a specific thing that they like, or they have, I guess you could say, depending if you like psychology, they have a specific motive, or they have a specific psychological triggers that they prefer, or behaviors that they prefer. If you like the themes around gods and goddesses, there are certain gods and goddesses that rule those days. Any way you want to just chop and slice it, from any perspective, but each day has a ruler. And guys, feel free to ask any questions while we're going through this topic. So this is just a little chart that I put together, so you guys can just get a general gist of what I mean by certain days being ruled or dominated by certain planets. Again, please feel free to ask any questions, because I do want you guys to start doing your own itineraries and to start doing your own plans, so you're not being sideswept by life or the things that happen. So days of the week. So we just start off with Sunday, because Sunday is the day of creation. It is the first day of the week. I know people like to do Monday, but if we're doing based off of how creation is set up, whether it be Hebrew, Christian, the Abraham religions, it will be the Sunday, because the sun is considered the greater light. So there's 2 luminaries, which is the sun and the moon, which means that they give off light, and the sun will be the source of all light and all creation. And we know from basic science that the sun does basically give us enough heat so everyone can run around. So it's considered the first one because it created everything first, and it is the point and the peak of creation. So Sunday is the first day of the week. So Sunday is ruled by the sun in nature, and we did briefly talk about what the sun does in the previous stream in the slides. But the sun is vision. It's who we are at our core. It's creation. It gives off life. It exerts matter. So when we talk about, even like when we talk about like the Bible and how it like structures how the days are created, if you just look at like how it talks about how the lights are created, it briefly tends to talk about he made this light, he made that light. Honestly, some of the translations could be marked as like they're markers or depositors of matter, and that would mean planets, and it can also mean shem or markers, so or stars of the heavens. So he created 7 stars. So the earth was empty and barren, and the darkness came across the deep, and the Spirit of God soared above the waters. So in this one, I will be translating based off of the Hebrew translation of what these planets' names are and what did they do. So on the first day, on the creative act, which is named Sunday, life was given by the sun, and it is ruled by the angel Michael. The Hebrew word for number 1 is ashed or ashed. This is a corruption of the words ash, which means fire or star, and shed, to pour forth, which means the fiery star has poured forth. From this diversion or this translation comes Shaddai, which means all bountiful fire, which is the name of God, the all bountiful. You also get Ashed, which is the first day thereof assigned the sun. That's how it loosely translates. It also can be translated as Dominica dies or Solus dies in English, Sunday, or in German, Sonntag. The sun is the principal planet. It's above all others. There is no light above this planet. And there was darkness before until there was light, and until the sun was there, and the sun is exalted. The sun is exalted in the sign of Aries, which is the first zodiac to march through the procession, and it is the first seed. Notice that Aries, the constituents or the principles of Aries is hot and dry, and notice there's no life, there's nothing here, it's pretty barren. So that is the first day. So you have Michael Ashed, which is again bountiful fire, or a fire that was poured forth. So Sunday will be about heart, vision, and vitality. So who we are at our core, any type of vision, things that we see, vitality, and overall consciousness, which makes somewhat of sense when people would like to have church on these days, because usually it's a very day that people want to participate in things that can have a lot of vitality, make them feel renewed in some type of way, make them feel back at their center, who they are at their core, or give them some vision or some type of direction. But if you're not going to be going to church or any of the traditional religions, these are certain things that you could do on those days. So you can recenter yourself, you can focus on your vision, you can focus on your heart, your children, lovers, vitality, anything that can help you recenter back to who you are as a person. So that is Sunday. So the next planet we have is Monday, which is ruled by the moon. It's also ruled by the angel Gabriel. It is translated as, well, it is called Shenem or Ashnem. This is translated as the sleeping star or the star that slumbers. It is called that because it gives reference to the domain of night. So on the first day, God created light. On the second day, God created, the first day was dark, but the first day he created the light or the sun. And the second day he created night or the moon or the second light. So it's considering the sleeping star or the slumbering star. So everything that is ruled by the night in certain regards, like on a Monday, also gives reference to this. So this could be translated in the Latin as Lune dies or dies. We also have Monday. We also have Montag in German, all derived from the moon. The moon is an element, is ruled by water. And when you read the Bible, it talks about how the plow was sent through the water or from the water, and he carved out the sky from the water. So on the first day we have nothing. It's dry and barren, because of the sun for Sunday. On the second day, we create the night, and the night is moist and wet. But from that, we have the cow that plows, which would be Taurus, because the moon is exalted in Taurus. And you put the plow on the cow, and he carves out the heavens or the skies from the water. So now we have three types of placements. We have hot or heat, then we have the day, and then now we have night. We also have water with the moon, but then from water we carve out another element, which we get air. So the cow plows the water, and from the water we beget to have air. We get the sky now. But because it's a Monday, you would have things that rule the bodily functions, cycles, also women, because women's bodies are usually on cycles, due to like menstruation, all this other stuff. Also just the nature of childbirth, but you also have just sleeping and rest in general. And I can't help but think that this is also why people hate Mondays, because Mondays is ruled by the moon, and it's considered like night, or sleeping and slumbering. It's considered the sleeping star. So I can see why a lot of people just don't like Mondays, period. Like, it makes sense. It really does. But you see how each day kind of has its own little vibe to it. And so through that, you can get a totally different result. So on a Sunday, you could be chilling and it's cool. And then on a Monday, you're like, I hate it here. I don't want to be here. And I can't help but to think that people are having like lunar based responses to the Monday, because it's a very moon response, and the moon rules memories, it rules family, and it rules conditioning, like emotional memories that we've been conditioned to experience. So people are more responsive than normal. So it seems like Mondays are more hectic or more rough on people. Okay, so now let's go on to the third one. We have Tuesday. Tuesday is ruled by Mars. It is ruled by the angel Samuel. It is called Shelesh or Ashlesh. And this translates to the flaming star. Ashlesh also translates as general or leader with the army. Mars is the red planet, and according to mythology, it is the god of war and all military affairs. And from Hebrew, a word for the number 3, it begets or becomes obvious that Mars is assigned to the third day of the week. Latin, it is called Martes Dies, and in German, it is called Dienstag. Mars is exalted in the sign of Capricorn, and on that day, God forced the dry land above the waters. It is a good job on the scapegoat that both have tail and hooves. The mountains rose, and God said, let the land produce vegetation, and Pan, the god of nature, did oblige. So on this day, you talk about how from the waters and from the sky, because the sky is already formulated at this point, the waters are already formulated, we already have the sun, and from this point you have during the creation or days of creation, or how we make matter, we created a mountaintop. And so Mars is exalted in Capricorn, but Capricorn rules the mountaintop, hence the goat. People say people are the goats, or they're the greatest of all time. This will be translated to they are the most exalted of all time for their works. It is because the goat sits at the top of the mountain. And so on Tuesday, it is a place that rules, obviously, exaltation as far as in force, because it rules war, it rules military pursuits. But that could be also translated, because to be for real, everyone's chart isn't going to be like a general, and most people aren't in the military. So how can you make the best of this energy without going to jail or being a cop or being in the military? Okay, so Tuesday is about force, it's about action, and it's also loosely about tools, because as far as in the tools part, Mars is a thing about warfare and fighting, and it also rules iron and blood. So technically, if you're able to use something that's made out of metal, that's a tool, or use something that has to do with fire, this will be a good time for this too. Because maybe I'll do another stream about predominant Mars placements, or Mars placements that have dignity, or I guess you could say a title, like a nobility title, because planets can have nobility, like this is a lord, a duke, blah blah blah. Okay, these people can be good at fighting, but they also can high key, low key be good at cooking. So like if you have a Mars as well placed, these can make for great chefs. These can make for great surgeons because, again, we're dealing with blood. We're dealing with fighting, warfare, and tools like particularly iron and metals. And so that kind of falls in line with surgery. So Mars ruled planets or people with Mars that are exalted, these people can be good at fighting, cooking, surgery. Y'all see what we're getting at, how you can plan your days where it would be the most effective versus the least effective. So, like, prime example, this is just the top 3, but what if you were going to take a break, right? And you say, well, I'm gonna be off on Tuesday, but I want to work on Monday. See how Monday might be a little bit better for just sleeping and resting on some regards, or like eating, or things that's like cyclical, things that you do multiple times during the day or twice a day. So sleep is a cyclical thing, eating is a cyclical thing, you do it all the time, versus like Tuesday where yes, you can cook food, but it's not about that, it's about action and force. So you could like do something where you have to maybe work out, could be a better way to use your Tuesday, or I don't know, maybe you always wanted to go learn how to shoot a gun, you go to the shooting range, stuff like things that make sense. Or maybe you cut your hair because like clippers are made out of metal, so you do something that requires like of action that also requires a tool at the same time. Maybe you go cut the grass. But you see how you can kind of match them to make sense off of how to get the most out of those days. You don't move around backwards, you try to move with the flow. So sometimes people are planning days with the way the planets, they already have their own vibe, but you're planning something else and it's not going well. This is why you get nothing done. So sometimes our days are split and we get nothing done. Now there is a caveat to this, but I will also put that towards the end. But this is just bare minimum basic stuff, so that way you can just go with the flow. Now there are some exceptions to the rules, but again, we will go to, when I get towards the end of this, I'll have y'all ask some like questions just in case. But again, for the most part, we're going with the flow. Okay? Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, that's why people can't get nothing done. Y'all work schedules be on a wrong vibe. Everything just be wrong. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next 3 days. So we're going to do Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Okay. So for Wednesday, this is ruled by Mercury. It's ruled by the angel or the archangel Raphael, and it is called Arabo. This is what it is in Hebrew. It's Arabo. The words for Arabo, the AR part, that means light, as in a light born from a star, because they don't call them planets, they call them lights. So a light born from a star. The last part, Rabo, Rabo, which means activity, business, or employment. Thus, Mercury is the star of employment. Arabo can also mean finger or grasshopper. The root of the word Rab, R-A-B, means to discuss or argue. The word Arabo, the number 4, therefore refers to Mercury as the guardian of the 4th day, Wednesday, and in German it is called Mittwoch, which means middle of the week. And the Norwegians, they call this day Onsdag, which is a simple derivation of Odin in Norse mythology. Odin has 2 ravens, Hugin, which is roughly named thought, and Munin, which is named memory. Odin became all-knowing by drinking from the fountain of Mimir, but this cost him his eye that is ruled by the moon. His story is reflected in a symbol for Mercury, which is corrupted. Hey, Shango. So remember when I told y'all like certain eyes are ruled by certain, like, okay, genders have a certain placement for eyes. So prime example, the sun or the moon rules the eyes no matter what, but depending on your gender will tell you if it's your left or right eye. So that's what when I said that to you, like we just talking about like health wise, this is what they're talking about. So he ended up giving up his moon eye, and I told you, we talked about how the moon rules the body, cycles, slumber, anything that you do on a repetitive thing is called the eye, the star of slumber. He got rid of that for the solar eye, which is vitality, creation, who you are at your core, the heart of the matter. Hey fam, I was born on a Wednesday. I can see that. But yeah, like you see the difference. So this is what he's giving up. He's giving up his, I guess you could say, lunar vision or lunar sight just to have the solar sight. But this is why I kept saying Mercury is corruptible, and also that Mercury can see the sun and the moon at the same time. So the last stream I did before, because I was saying like Mercury could see the messages from the gods. Odin is a god. He ends up giving up one of his eyes to get a form of sight. So this is something that people can do. You don't have to really give up really both of your eyes, but as you can see through some of the mythologies, if you read through it, and how people translate, you see that the visions of sun and moon, or what type of things that they see, are very, very different, and people can sacrifice. And also the moon is corruptible. Mercury, or the mind, is corruptible. So Odin has two ravens, one is thought, one is memory, and the moon becomes corrupted, and so he has to get rid of it to have proper sight. So this story is reflecting the symbol of Mercury. Through observation, Mercury appears to move in both sphere closest to the moon, closest above the moon, and the sphere closest below the sun. So this is what I'm saying, like Mercury gets to see the sun and the moon at the same time. No other planet has that. That's why the glyph looks like that. That's why the glyph has a circle, which is the sun, and then those little horns at the top, the semicircle, is the moon. So it gets to be, you know, above the moon but below the sun, and so it can be easily corrupted. It can easily be changeable. They can the mind can be corrupted. So like you know, when people say, like, you know, people can change their mind, they have a flighty mind, this could be that their Mercury is in a placement where it can be even more corrupted than usual. But it also means that feelings or conditioned responses, which are lunar principles, how we are taught to act, how we are taught to think and respond to things, can corrupt the mind that we have now. So very interesting, you know, but people have to be careful, because people always say like stuff like people lose their minds. It's not untrue. People can lose their minds, and people's minds can be corrupted. People can get brainwashed. Mercury is such a fascinating, weird planet, as you can see. But yeah, but it appears with close to the sun and the moon. And actually it conjoins or gets close to the moon during the new moon, a time when the moon is invisible, so you won't see it. So when the moon, it gets dark out, that's when Mercury is closest to the moon. So it's like you can't even see the moon. So again, there you go, whispering sweet nothings, being corruptible. But basically it says that Mercury corrupts the moon. Basically the mind or words corrupt feelings, and feelings can corrupt the mind. The scientific method and became all-knowing attempts to separate from emotional and subjective, but logic and reason reigns at the expense of feelings and personal needs, as y'all can see. So emotion versus logic kind of spans out from these type of talking points. The Greek name for Mercury was Hermes, which is the interpreter or mediator of the gods. Mercury is a messenger and common to all. He is also strongly colored by the planets he associates with, that he would easily get lost amongst contradictions. So to suit him for his task, he received his exaltation in the same sign as his natural home, and the purifying and dutiful Virgo. This gives him a restraint and self-command regarding his identity. The first 3 days God used to break up new ground. He called upon Aries, Taurus, and Capricorn, all who were armed by the horns. These signs belong to ruminant or cud chewing signs, which means that it's cattle. So those signs are ruled by cattle. So they're ruled by cattle, which means that these people can have tummy problems or digestion problems, which a lot of them can. And on the fourth day, there was a lot of details to be attended to. So God had God had created, was put into an order, a system. On the fourth day, which would be Wednesday, God coughed up the building bricks of the universe, and the material of the first 3 days were digested. The digestive system, of course, under the rulership of Virgo, because Virgo has a sense of order, or the mind can make sense and make order. In Norse mythology, the beginning, Odin regulated the periods of the day and night, and the seasons by placing the sun and the moon in the sky and assigning them their respective orbits and spheres. Mercury is a planet of duality. Therefore, God let there be two lights, a day and night, and the sun was set to rule during the day and the moon during the night. God gave his instructions to the sun and moon and wandering stars. Wandering stars meaning other wandering planets. And these signs were given information. The seasons were determined and the calendar time coordinated. So, yeah. Very interesting. But when we look at Mercury and what it is, how it is ruled and stuff like that, or employment, this can be obviously nerves or sensations that people feel, because nerves like show us information, but we also have information shared amongst people. But also, when we say the star of employment means just to be of use or to have purpose. So Wednesday is the day of use or purpose. So even though I read like a couple of mythologies that are assigned to Wednesdays, notice how much purpose and how much use Wednesday or Mercury has. Like, he goes to send messages from the gods. He does this, he does that. He has to set the days in order, or it is the day that he sets the world in order. So after the first 3 days of creation, Wednesday is here to organize everything. So this will be a day that you would plan something to be of use or to be of order or to be practical. So this will be a day you will have to organize things. So you have to organize something. Okay. So Thursday is ruled by Jupiter. Today is Thursday. It is ruled by the angel, or the word Sadkiel, and it is called Kimhash. So on the 5th day, it is also associated with Thor, which is the god of thunder, and parallel to the Roman Jupiter. The angel Jupiter is called, again, Sadkiel. The Hebrew word for the number 5 is Kimhash, which is formed by the letters CHEM, Kim, which means warmth, and Ash, ASH, which is star, meaning the warm star. Ptolemy emphasizes in his treaty of the planets that the influence of Jupiter is primarily warm rather than moist. By reversing the first letter in the Hebrew Kimhash, we arrive at Meshach, which means to anoint with oil. The root of his words relates to Mech, which is fat, and of Mech comes Meshach, or Messiah, the anointed one. So Messiah means the anointed one, or a person who has been integrated. By reversing the first and last letter of Meshach, we arrive at Shemach, which means the star of joy. In Latin, the day is called Jovis Dies. God exalted Jupiter in the sign of Cancer, and in particular set him to rule large animals. Cancer is a water sign, the home of the moon. On the day of the moon, God spread the waters. Today, he said, let there be abundance of life in the waters. The birds fly above the earth and below the expanse. God created the birds in the sky and the great creatures of the sea and everything living in which the water teems. Water signs of the zodiac are termed fruitful, and God said, be fruitful and increase in number. Jupiter is the greater benefic, and God blessed that what he created on this day. So on this day, because of the translation or the interpretation of what Jupiter is, it is roughly, again, 5 is one word, but another word is to integrate. So 5 will be also the 5 senses that we have. Integrate is to merge in, but also to anoint. If you look at what anointing is, it is a form of integrating or becoming fat or merging things together. So we would integrate or merge things into a structure on this day. We would unite and we would have things become equal. So a way you can integrate or unite certain things into an existing structure will be to learn something. So a structure is like you already have ideas, thoughts, and you probably already know something, but to merge or integrate something or to take something in and make sure it's made whole into something else. Well, you're already a person and you can learn something, and you basically would merge the information into yourself. You see how that works? Also, to equalize something. So you could be working on something where you're trying to balance it out or equal it out. This would be a good day to do that. Maybe you want to be peaceable. You could go be peaceable, But anything that would deal with being fruitful, integrating things, uniting things, being happy, this is a great thing to do on Jupiter. On a Jupiter ruled day, which would be Thursday. So all of you guys, today's Thursday, y'all learning how to plan y'all week based off of the planets. This is perfect. This is a good thing. Long as you learn it, you can integrate it. This is a way you can maximize on a Jupiter ruled day or a Thursday. Okay, so now we have Friday. Friday is ruled by Venus. It's also ruled by the angel Aniel. It is called in Hebrew Shish or Ashish, and it is the order of balance or completion. Okay, so on the 6th day, Venus holds her service and rulership here, and it is received by the name of Friday, and is derived from the Germanian Freya, which again was a corruption of the Scandinavian Freya and Frigg, which is the equivalent to Venus. The angel of Venus is Aniel, and in Hebrew, the number 6, Shish, is an abbreviation of Ashish, which means the star of existence. On the 6th day, man was created and creation was completed, and in this manner, the day gave the uprise of existence. According to Job 38, 6-7, the cornerstone or the capstone of creation was laid down, while the morning stars sang together and all the angels or sons of God shouted for joy. Music and happiness are both virtues of Venus. From the Hebrew Shish or number 6, it is therefore apparent that Venus rules the 6th day. Latin, this day is called Vernus Dies. Venus is exalted in Pisces, the last sign of the zodiac. Hence, it was good day for completing and putting down the crown of work, so to speak. Venus is considered the lesser benefic. Also, on this day, God created living creatures, then blessed them. God said, let us create man in our image, and woman, man and woman were created. Pisces indicates the diversity or the opposites of sexes. Therefore, Venus is the ruler of the human race. Venus has her fall in the human sign Virgo and has Taurus and Libra as her domains. The heavens were made in God's likeness, and man was created in the likeness of the heavens, according to the instructions laid down on the 4th day. Pisces is a water sign, and once again, God said, be fruitful and increase in number. Pisces is the last sign and the capstone of the zodiac. Friday belongs to the Son of Man. Jesus becomes identified with the capstone and was crucified on a Friday. In Psalms 1:18-22, Luke 9:22, and Acts 4:11. To add some detail, it is Gabriel, which we talked about. He was here before. So Gabriel, who was the messenger god, also the god of Mercury. The angel of the moon. So he was a planet of fertility. So the planet of fertility, or the angel Gabriel, which is the moon, he comes to tell Mary that she will be with child, while Jesus is to have given up the ghost in the 8th hour of Friday, which would be Venus. It is the planetary hour of Mercury. At this moment, he gives out a cry, which is Mercurian in nature. Hence, a circle has been completed. Pisces is the sign representing the Christian principle, while the natural ruler of Pisces, Jupiter, signifies anointment or integration. In his feet is ruled by Pisces, which is a part of the body commonly associated with anointment. So you notice the Bible talks about anointment or anointing feet all day, every day. They're talking about Jupiter being anointed, and since Pisces is the last day, about Friday, so the Son of God, which will be, I guess you could say, religion, is ruled by Jupiter, and Friday is man. So the Son of God has become a human, and he's been anointed with his feet. Hence why when he was crucified, he was kind of stabbed in his feet. But y'all see what we're getting here. So it is associated with anointment, and then you have Jupiter and Venus. God and man share dignity or friendship in the sign of Pisces, which represents the heaven or the Garden of Eden. So that is that. And we have one more, which will be Saturn or Saturday. And then I will let y'all ask me any questions before we move on to the next section, because I can understand someone being confused. All right, so Saturday is the last day. It is ruled by Saturn. It is ruled by the angel Cassio. It is called Shibo. It rules return, restoration, and hiding. So on the 7th day, Saturday receives its name from the planet Saturn. Its angel is Cassio, Shibo. The Hebrew word for the number 7, it is combined of the words ash, which means star, and sheb, which means old age. Saturn is the star of old age. Shibo means to have plenty or be full. With a reference to Saturn's rulership over the products of Earth or materialism, the expression is to be saturated or flooded stems from the meaning of Saturn. The word sheb also means to return or restore. It is also used in appliance with the turn of the year, the ending and beginning of the new year. Saturn has two big heads or signs of rulership placed at the turning of the year. Saturn is closely related to Janus, the two-headed god that gives the name of the first month of the calendar year, which will be called January. Also, in regard to the week end and the beginning of the week, the root name for Saturn comes from the Hebrew term sater, which means to hide or conceal. The other name of Saturn, Chronos, arises from the Hebrew word chron, which means a horn, which in the East is recognized as a symbol of power. In English, the day bears the easy recognizable name Saturday, which lies close up to the Latin Saturni dies, but in Norwegian this is called Lordag, which comes from the Norse Retrograde, which means wishing day, referring to the ancient rising or rinsing customs of the church. Saturn is the greater malefic. It rules variations of endings, deadness. Its exaltation is in Libra, which is the opposite of the first sign Aries. In a general way, it is thought that nothing will benefit under the influence of the greater malefic. So on this day, God did nothing. Libra does not work, and the scales are lay idle, hence the term lazy Libra. But it is on this day, under the influence, that one is weighed or judged. Saturn rules cooling processes of the seventh day and became to rest. In spite of Saturn's malefic nature, God did bless this day and made it holy, because it is the day that he rested or ceased from creating. From this day, we get the expression holiday, which means holy day. Okay? So that is kind of what the loose translation of what it means to break down the days based off of Hebrew and based off the days of creation and how we have things set up in astrology. Any questions before I move on to how you're going to use this information to map out the days of the week? I will give you guys a minute. Let's see. Okay, because now we're going to move on to the hours. Again, you do not have to try to learn planetary hours, and I won't be going into too much details because I can see someone's eyes glazing over trying to get this whole days of the week stuff down. So I just won't be jumping really deeply into those things, but it is a technique that works. But since we don't have any questions, we'll just slide over it, and I'll just give you an example. So planetary hours, this is an example of what planetary hours look like. So different days are ruled by certain hours, that each day has different hour markers as based per the planets or whatever. So if you see where DY is, it's the Saturn symbol, which is the plus sign, and then the little curve going downward. Notice it's the same all day because this is a Saturday. It is ruled by Saturn. That will not change. But notice near the hour part, HR, and you see the time changes, right? Notice that it's going through multiple planets. So it starts off with Saturn. So it says 7:14 a.m. Notice they both have the Saturn signs. But as the day rolls on, different planets are rolling up, and each hour is getting hit by different planetary energy. Okay? So this is the day of Saturn. I say, notice how the hours change. The planetary forces change as well. And so this is when you get two expressions of planetary forces at the same time. So if Saturn, we talked about hiding, restoration, body structures or structures in general, or any type of thing that's being crystallized or compacted in a very harsh or an intense way. It is cold. It is very dense, right? Imagine that with different things. So imagine that being dense mixed in with other things. So for instance, we had Monday. We talked about how Monday was the sleeping star, and it was the planet of cycles, women, the body. Okay, so if you have something that is called the sleeping star, and you have something that deals with restoration or hiding, you see how it makes a lot of sense for Monday you could take a nap, and then Sunday you could take a nap. Y'all see what we're getting here? See? So like if we look at 2 days, what if this was the day of Tuesday, and that was ruled by Mars, and then we have Mercury after. Notice how Mars and Mercury were very run around days. And so Mars, it is the days of like warfare or force and low key tools. But then Mercury is a day of resources and being of use and putting things to purpose. So we can get a lot of chores and activities done during those 2 days. Do y'all get it? If y'all don't get it, please let me know. I will try to help y'all, but this is just planetary hours. I will not be going into planetary hours because you will have to do this on top of the days. Okay? I will probably have to do a planetary hour one completely separate because there's a whole type of rule thing to that. But just getting the days down, you can get a lot more. You can be a lot more productive. Now, to be fair, as someone who has done planetary planning, even if I have done something in the course of a day that the day rules, sometimes if I get hit with a bad hour where these two planets do not get along and they don't like each other, it can still form some resistance. However, I can still get done a lot of the tasks that I need to get done. Hey Rex, you can still get a lot of the tasks done that you need to be done. So what I would suggest you to do if you're going to just start this technique, because this is a technique, y'all learning an astrology technique, and it's an astrology technique that y'all can use to get things done during the day, right? Write things down, journal everything, document everything that happens, even mundane things. Hey Digital B, even mundane things, you write everything down because you want to keep a log of all of the things that happen and what you're going to do. Keep things to yourself. Think like a scientist. If you tell people that you're doing an experiment on behaviors or how people interact or things like that, sometimes people's behaviors will switch, and sometimes people start trouble, so they try to act different so they can prove you wrong. Tell no one. Write down everything and you keep track. So on a Tuesday you write down everything. On a Wednesday you write down everything, even the boring stuff, and you keep track. Honestly, you will see a pattern. You will see a pattern. Like, I know exactly what days I have it where I'm more prone to be argumentative or disagreeable. Like, I'm grumpy that day, and I just know that for a fact. I know the days where I'm more sleepy. Like, I'm tired, I'm going to go to sleep, I'm taking a nap, I don't want to do anything today, or it's going to be very hard for me to do stuff this day. I literally map it out because I can see. I actually have certain days where and I had tracked it for a while. I know exactly what days where I'm more prone to having plumbing issues. Like, the toilet flooded every day on that day for weeks. And I know exactly what day that is. Because I've tracked mundane things like just chores. That is a chore that you do, like you plunger the toilet. That's something that's mundane. You write that down too, because then you know what days you have chores that comes up weekly.
Right, and moving it back to the focus on you guys, that's something that y'all definitely have to pay attention to what BMORE is saying.
So you write down everything, even chores, like even things like if you have to sweep something every day and it's like a particular day, you write that down. You don't let really a lot of things slide because you want to see how your chart is reacting to the planets. Okay? All right. Any questions before we start moving into transits, and how they're acting, how they're operating, and what you're going to do? Okay. So Venus just went direct It was retrograded pretty much all summer. So again, we briefly had some streams talking about the Venus retrograde, people falling in love, having money, things, different types of things that come up during Venus. And it retrogrades like this every 8 years because Venus has to renew itself. It has to restore itself. Because I told you Venus is the planet of balance, or I guess you could say humanness to a certain extent. So with Venus being direct and it's in the sign of Leo, it'll be interesting. It's kind of interesting seeing what you've learned all summer in your relationships and how you got here. So Venus is in star placements that the fixed stars that rule success in certain things, or a domination in certain things. So let me see something real quick. Okay, hold on. Okay, I found it. All right, so Venus is in a placement where it rules military preferment, blindness, eye trouble, shipwrecks, mass murder, horrors, being self-willed or uncooperative. Again, not saying all of these things will be a thing from like literal translation, because sometimes blindness or eye trouble is not seeing things clearly for what they are. It also is in a placement that rules penetration, or the penetration of the mind, analytical mind, travel, many friends, craft, ingenuity, valor, danger of robbery, accidental poisonings, astrology, writing, perseverance, domestic problems, poisons, liars, astrology again, arrogance, psychic powers, destruction. Is also known the pivot of the sky, or the eye of the sky, meaning that the planets are about to go down into dissension. So what we learn from here is with Venus, we learn balance, humanness, art, marriage, others. And so the human experience is about learning about ourselves with other people, especially in the sign of Leo, which deals with our core, heart, esteem, hereditary, like being related to people, and romance. And so at this point, you should have had dynamics and relationships and who you are through self-discovery, about who you are, in reference to who you are for yourself and others. What do you want in relationships? What do you want to go after? And how do you see yourself at your core as far as in self-esteem? So currently Venus is squared Jupiter, and so it is actually squared Jupiter, and it's also making aspects to Uranus. So you should have a lot more luck, extravagance. It could be some indulgence here, but it is interesting the balance of where we are and where we're going. We also have Jupiter retrograde. So this will go back to June the 9th. So a lot of these planets are retrograding. They'll retrograde back into degrees that we had earlier this year. So you might be encountering some experiences that you've had earlier this year in the spring and summer that are kind of coming back up again. This is why I tell people to try to journal everything, so that way you can keep track of what has happened or will happen, so you can know how to deal with it. Because most of the time it just comes back in like a remix order. That's it. So once you know how to get into the flow, how to handle something, how to deal with something, when it comes back again, you're not going to be like overwhelmed or anything. Like you already know what it is. And retrogrades, like I said before, yes, they give us a second chance to learn something, to integrate something, to figure out what we need to do, but it also gives us another opportunity to get closer to the ideals of those planets, because the planets can get closer to the sun, the stars, different stars, but it can get closer to Earth. They can sometimes get closer to the sun, and they can sometimes get closer to the moon. And when they do this, it gives you an opportunity to better integrate those parts in a more conscientious way. So earlier this year, Jupiter was retrograded around, I think, I think it'll be 5 degrees in Jupiter, and these are around the fixed stars of Almec and Menhir, and these deal with Venusian occupations, artistic abilities being popular. It can also deal with like diseases, throat troubles, disgrace, ruin, injuries from beasts, or being unjustifiably provoked or attacked. But it deals with those things, and we talk about Jupiter. We just went over a little bit earlier. It deals with morale, motor response, memory, and it's in the sign of Taurus, and it deals with accumulation, maintaining, and building. So how much morale or esteem or believing in yourself, how much faith in yourself had you built, how much motor, like there's certain things with movement that you will probably have to learn, you know, moving around and not being stubborn or stuck somewhere. It also deals with memory and memories that you learned from experiences. So Jupiter rules the cerebrum, which is a integration function of the body. And so it does rule motor function in a sense that it collects information from your 5 senses. It comes up with a concept, and then it also then comes up with voluntary movement, where we can make active choices to act a certain way or not to act a certain way. So when Jupiter retrogrades, and it will be going back to the degrees that we had around June 9th, and it will be retrograding for a while, you will be able to make conscientious decisions that maybe earlier this year, around the beginning of summer, late spring, you weren't thinking in a way where you had control over yourself or control of the situation. Maybe you were defeated earlier this year. Maybe you was clumsy, you lacked motor responses. Maybe you were struggling to accumulate, build, or maintain things. You know, but now you're here and you can handle it. We also have Neptune retrograding. So all of this stuff happened towards the end of August and then this week as well. Neptune retrograded. The last time we had this retrograde was February 14th, earlier this year. It is retrograding in the stars of Markab and Shet, which is they can be kind of rambunctious, but they can imply violence, honors, and riches. The star of sorrow, literary, legal problems, accidents. It can also mean imprisonment, murder, suicide, drowning, and extreme misfortune. Now, granted, I don't think everyone's going to be experiencing extreme misfortune, but when we talk about the principles of Neptune or Pisces, we talk about the principle of Neptune, it deals with belief, spiritualism, imagination, unity, and forms of vision, things that are non-physical, right? But it's in the sign of Pisces, which is also accumulative because it's a water sign and it has density. It deals with wholeness, unconscious movements, and intoxication. And so we could be going back to times where we had to integrate forms of spirituality, boundaries, breaking down, when we had weak drive, where we didn't believe in ourselves, or when we were questioning our philosophy or questioning ideas that we had around who we are in our existence. And this was just earlier this year, around Valentine's Day. And so it's going to go back to here. So you're going to be having more times to interact with these things and to see how they're going to, what have you learned and how much have your beliefs changed? And that's usually, honestly, the overall thing with this, especially with these types of planets and the aspects that they're making. So yeah, I just want to deal with hope, healing, cognitive issues, morale in general. It could have some other, obviously, health placements, because again, astrology can also be linked to health issues. But how much, notice a lot of these planets deal with how much faith or how much belief do you have in yourself. This is why it's important that we learn, one, planetary planning right now, but also two, we pay attention, because we can be put back into situations where we didn't believe in ourselves or we didn't have that much faith in ourselves early this year, and now we're almost back again in the same situation. And we have the choice to make conscious decisions to be in certain situations or not to be, or to believe in ourselves or not to believe in ourselves. That's where we are right now. Okay? Okay, so Uranus is also retrograding. It will go back to a degree point that happened in early May, so May 11th. It is aspecting fixed stars called Rana and Zorak. So Rana is the love of knowledge, science, much travel, many friends, many changes, positions of authority, accidents at sea, drowning. Zorak is melancholy, fear of death, suicidal tendencies. Again, not saying that I expect everyone to have a mental breakdown, but this overall can show you how you can lose faith or lose hope in situations or yourself, and not see things clearly. So Uranus in general deals with coordination, rhythms, and electric transports. So how well we're into the rhythm or the frequency of life. And it's in the sign of Taurus, which again deals with accumulation, building up, and maintaining. So how well can you maintain a rhythm, or how well can you maintain accumulation of the things that you've built or maintained? This is how we get abundance, by maintaining, accumulating, and building. But if you have placements like Uranus, which deals with coordination, rhythms, and electrical pulses, it's easy to be off-centered or to have situations where it knocks you kind of off your course. So the retrograde was going to also kind of put you in a situation where you have to examine how well you can adapt and stay in, I guess you could say, the frequency or the rhythm of life. Okay, now we're here. This planet isn't retrograded, but we have Mars and Libra. And technically, Mars and Libra is a planet that's in detriment, or those two placements don't really like each other. So it started in August 28th and it'll be over October 12th. But the reason why they kind of really don't want to be with each other, because they have different ideas about what they want. So Mars is about action, force, and tools, and Libras is about balance, harmony, humanity, and even to certain points, just rest, just sitting down. So this will deal with how you balance force. And seeing as though Libra is a Venus rule sign and Venus is in the sign of Leo, whatever you learned this summer about being true to who you are, staying true to your heart, dealing with any childhood or hereditary or family issues, it will help you get to this point. So now we're at a point where we have to actively balance. So Mars is about force and action, and Libra is about balance and harmony. It's going to force you to try to balance or make some sense of all the things that you've learned so you can get through this point. And it's very important that you take in everything and you try your best and you try to look at things objectively, and not having what we call like a lunar response or a moon response, where we're having emotional responses to how things happen in the past. So having emotional responses to memories or emotional responses to how we were raised or situations we've been in. It's important that you do not have that, so that way you can make the best out of this. If you should see where I'm leading you, but if you don't, again, you can ask questions. But notice Mars is in Libra, Venus is direct in the sign of Leo, because Venus is the planet that rules Libra. And so everything you learned during this Venus retrograde from the beginning of the summer in the sign of Leo, we're here now. And also the sun is in Virgo, so it deals with the mind, analyzing and setting the mind right in order. So we're here, we have to get down to business, and we have to start planning as per the request of the stars, or as per the request of the universe or God, however you see it. But it's important that we pay attention, and it's going to force you to balance these things out. Hence Mars being in Libra, forcing harmony, forcing balance. No, you cannot do these things anymore. You have to get serious. So planning and sitting down and writing down all of these things can help you to get serious, or to at least see where you're going and see what's going on. So currently, Mars and Libra are in the signs of Zanaya and Vendor Matrix. So Zanaya, if I remember correctly, Zanaya is a softer star. So it deals with order, congeniality, a lovable nature, refinement, and honor. Where Vendor Matrix deal with falsity, folly, disgrace, stealing, widowhood, depression, witch hunts, and mysticism. And I also want to say too, based off of the stars and when they were made, that also points that too. Vendor Matrix can also deal with women who are like widowed and then they become more free or rebellious after the death of their husbands, or husbands that don't constrain their wives, and their wives are kind of just like their own person. They have individuality. So we're in this place where you have a lovable nature. You kind of let people be themselves. But again, there could be a falseness or a folly or disregard for order or balance. and how we're acting. So you have to pay attention. Hey, P Blazer. So you have to pay attention. So this is why, you're going to start journaling things, so that way you can come up with, and again, y'all have the stream, so y'all see each day what each day will do. And so from that, with each day and how you would handle things, you will start to map those out. Hey, Journey. And you will map it out from there. Okay. Mercury Kazemi this week. So around the 4th, it Kazemi'd, which means that Mercury, it roughly means going into the heart. So Mercury went into the heart of the sun, which means that it purified itself, which is considered benefic, especially since we're going through a Mercury retrograde. And a lot of y'all were feeling tired, worn down, and all over the place. So this could be good or useful for you guys, because you could feel like you had more clarity, or you had overall more brilliance during some of these transits, during these times. So they're in the fixed stars of Zazma and Mizar. And so Zazma deals with keen intellect, depression, fearfulness, unhappy, feeling restricted, lost in childhood. And Mizar deals with being connected with fires, catastrophic events, and mass calamities. Not saying that you would have this, but because Mercury is purified of this, it could deal with you healing or getting some closure with calamities or catastrophic events that could have happened as a child or happened before that you're coming to terms with, or very upsetting or traumatic things that you're finding closure to have. And because Mercury deals with purpose, use, and nerves, Virgo deals with discrimination, refinement, sifting, and sorting. And so we can be finding uses and purposes of mental dexterities, communication, siblings, even all manners of things, learning new things that we can find a proper use for. But you should have more clarity, a more brilliant mind or insight, better nerves, more vitality, repairing inflammation, anything that we struggled with, but also subjectivity. And I think that's the main thing of these retrogrades, because retrogrades, they get really close to the earth. Sometimes they get really close to the sun. And when they do this, they get so close, even like the moons, we had super moons, and the super moons got close to the earth. We can lack subjectivity. We can lack objectivity. So we can be very subjective. So we can see situations in a very specific way that only we've experienced them. But when we do that, we rob ourselves from seeing it from other people's point of views, but we can also be robbing ourselves from healing too. So as this time goes on, you should be able to see things in a more objective, balanced way where you can get over certain things. So that's where we're at. Okay, Jasmine, and no, I won't, honey. Okay, so we recently had the last quarter moon in Gemini. This was, the moon moved into Gemini around the 5th, but we have it today. Today it will be squaring or becoming the last quarter moon before we move into our next phase today. And it's in the fixed stars of Capella, Fact, Nath, El Nil, and Al Heka. And these type of placements deal with inquisitiveness, being open-minded, powerful friends, being talkative, accidents, sudden dishonor, talent in art or science, luck, fortune, success, quarrels, being headstrong, brief fame, a quick temper, scandal, honors, wealth, power, greed, and aggression. This could show up with issues with siblings, friends, possibly lovers, family, or women. And this could put into question, again, conditioned responses versus responses that we are consciously aware of and how we're going to maneuver through them. So this, again, deals with body cycles, women, and then Gemini is perception, picking up or transferring information or translating it. And so we can have issues around some identity issues, or we can have a split vision where our action says one thing, but the way we conscientiously would like to do things says something else. So if we're not careful, this could put us in stressful ways, but it can also compromise our health as well. So this will be the last one before we move into the next cycle, which we will start the Virgo new moon next week. So the Virgo new moon next week, I'm not gonna lie, it deals with a lot of criticism, haters, misfortune, and also just randomly a lucky blind eye where you don't have to pay attention to so much nonsense and riffraff. And so right now we have a lot of luck and fortune where we can recover and restore our health. We can have a lot of popularity and excess. We can allow ourselves to get into the flow and the pulse of life. We can still have some issues of acting when we're supposed to, but we can use even technology or family or hereditary things to help our vitality. We have a lot of opportunities to getting out of ruts and to change. There could be some issues with intestinal problems, the gut, diarrhea. We can have a lot of tummy issues, but we can have a lot of change, windfall, luck in general, unexpected surprises that are good. We can have issues with stimulants, which will be like coffee, teas. This can be hard on the liver and the nerves, and caffeine. But you can also learn with ease, and there could be a lot of positive thinking, but you would have to remember to be detailed. This is why I tell you guys to write down everything. You have to be detailed so you can stay on top of all of the things that are about to happen. This will make for a great mind. You have to work on time management and coordination and balancing. There could be a mismatch of words, almost like someone who says words in the wrong order, or someone who's dyslexic. But this can lead to innovative thinking and intuition. Can help with career and networking. We have to be careful because we'll be more sensitive to environments and people, and we can have unusual responses. Again, responses and emotional responses to things that we thought we were over or we were working to put behind us. So we will have to be careful with that. And we can also deal with slights or people feel like people wronged us, but it's subjective, meaning like it's a perceived slight, but nothing happened, you know. You also could be in a place where you would have to care for women or family. Your emotional barriers will be lowered, and you can be quite impressionable, and you will have your feelings versus others, and or you can be very emotional dependent. And you can also have psychosomatic things, which leads to it can lead to people acting crazy or delusional, but basically having almost like an emotional response without thinking. Is like an automated emotional response. If people aren't careful, you should mind your coping mechanisms. So like addiction, dissatisfaction, restriction, giving up, retreating from reality. Try visualization, try prayer, try meditation, try turning from a victim to a victor. This can also deal with water retention, building up of fluids, and allergies. Hey, no one, and asthma. So you should try to be mindful of that, because we're not victims, we're victors. We've learned what we were supposed to learn, and now we can put it into practice, especially with us mapping out what we're going to do, and just roughly based off of what planets do what they're supposed to do. You can make a plan on how you're going to operate from there, especially if you pay attention to certain things and you jot down all the mundane things. Okay, but just have to be careful of the extravagance, overspending, indulging in love. Balance optimism with structure. Again, can have a lot of luck. Invest or save things for the future. There could also be some hormonal issues, which explains the random ups and downs. So there could be some hormonal issues or estrogenation, which can make people very moody and emotionally up and down. Also, people can be avoiding exercising. There could be poor circulation and swollen veins. So the circulation can be so poor that your veins can become swollen, or there could be puffiness. The hormones can also make you puffy as well. There could be oversensitivity, overreactions. That's why I say document everything, but also try to avoid annoying people or irky people that you know ahead of time. But also keep in mind, try to be objective, because there are a lot of things that will be perceived as some way, which it isn't. Innovation and creativity, community service, art, and metaphysics could be on the menu. There could be some spasms and internal positive changes, especially that are so powerful that it can affect friends and groups in any type of way. You can be seen as an influential leader. There's a strong determination to survive, and there could be some challenges around the death of the individual or the self in order to change. So what it seems like people are on the cusp of changing or self-improvement. There could be some resistance to these types of self-improvements, due to fear, due to lack, or doing to comfort. And sometimes we cling to comfort out of fear because we don't want to change, because we think it's scary or we think it could be too big. But yeah, there could be, again, ups and downs, disturbed sex drive. There could even be some love at first sight or friendships at first sight. But again, try to take it easy, because these feelings are going to go up and down. They're not straight in a certain regard. And so you have to be careful of the subjectivity, or there will be a lot of bias here. But the improvements that you're making can be very real, but you would have to pay attention and just write down everything. I guess I need to stay. Let me see. I guess I need to stay away the next week. No, it really depends. It really depends. I really feel like most people will be fine. Most people will be fine. People just have to pay attention to certain things, and document stuff. So a lot of people noticed when we did the Venus retrograde, we had a lot of people talking about childhood dynamics, because surprisingly, Leo predominant things or solar predominant things could deal with things that are hereditary or things that we're related to. And so a lot of people's stuff streams from childhood had affected their love life, and it affected their money. Well, now that Venus is direct and it's the ruler of Mars, and then the sun's ruler, Leo's ruler, is in Virgo, it's a time to reorganize and reorder, restructure anything we learned about ourselves, learned about childhood, learned about any of these things. And because change is hard, we will have to deal with unconscious reactions or unconscious conditionings that we were raised to. So if you want to improve, I think a practical way, saying like I could have an emotional response that would kind of mess up any progress I'm making, being for real about it. So like when people are struggling with addiction, they usually tell them, like, if there's certain people or places or things that are triggering, you don't go there. When people are struggling with like PTSD or any type of traumatic things, like they tell them to pay attention to where they're going and what they're doing, and they tell them not to do that, because you can have an unconscious reaction that you're not going to be ready for, or it can be demoralizing. And so since we have all these fixed stars and they deal with our belief in ourselves, you don't want to set yourself up where you kind of take all the self-belief out of yourself, or mess up your self-esteem, or demoralize yourself because you made a emotionally reactive decision. So you want to try to be as conscious as possible, so like sometimes people mess up on their diets because they're eating out of emotionalism. So like foods are tied to like culture, customs, even emotions. So like you'll go to a birthday party, you expect birthday cake. But if you're trying to lose weight or just even cut down on sugars, like maybe you like, well, I have to cut down on sugars because I don't know, whatever your reason is, like I want to watch my blood levels or whatever, you're going to have an emotional response of feeling left out because you're used to eating cake at birthday parties, which is completely normal. But also maybe you have to brace for that emotional response. So maybe you have to bring your own cake that doesn't have as much sugar, or maybe you don't go, or you plan an outing with whoever birthday it is that's separate from the event, so you don't feel triggered to eat something that you can't. All of these things matter. So what you're going to be embarking this week, going into next week, is having emotional triggers or seeing emotionally triggering things that you thought you have dealt with or you're very aware of. You might have to go back through and experiencing them again, but it's also testing how much do you believe in yourself, how strong is your morale. Because remember, Taurus, where we had belief and morale with Neptune, Jupiter, notice it was Taurus where it was a build up on accumulation. So it's saying how much belief did you build up until this point. Hopefully that makes sense. But no, I don't think you should avoid anything, because you won't really see anything that you would have to grow on, or you can't see improvement either. You have to actually challenge yourself to get the improvement that you want. So that's all. And because we're going to deal with a lot, you can deal with some criticism next week, because the way those planets lock in for that new moon, you're going to be hitting criticisms and also people who you're not supposed to be around. It literally, I'm gonna be honest, that new moon hits stars where it says being around I guess you could say unseemly guests or questionable associates, right? That new moon is going to lock in where it's going to make you question who you're around. These people can come out like haters, or they have questionable motives. And because of that, you will have to pay attention. And if you haven't gotten them out your face by now, by next week, you won't see that they need to be out your face. So in order for you to do that, you got to make sure you're paying attention to your emotional responses and you're not going in the default of, oh, I love gym, or I love being around here, or I love this behavior. I don't want to give it up. And the reality is about change that people don't talk about is that changing or negative behaviors can have positive reinforcements. So some people, and this is a prime example, and I might put up the book so y'all can read it, but a book on self-esteem by Dr. McKay, he talks about self-esteem and how it's an important survival tactic, and like learning self-esteem is good for people because it helps them to protect themselves. Well, guess what? Sometimes people learned bad self-esteem for a reason, and it does have positive reinforcements to a negative behavior. So maybe they learn to be more efficient or to be perfect, or to avoid rejection. That is a positive reinforcement to a negative behavior. So yes, low self-esteem can mess people up. They can date the wrong people. It can even put them in danger. However, maybe if that person is doing it so they don't feel rejection, maybe it helped them. So then you have to question, am I giving myself positive reinforcements for a behavior that's not good? Am I hanging around people even though they make me feel good? Is it a not good situation? So you can have positive reinforcements around negative things. Because sometimes doing the right thing don't always feel good. And a lot of people don't really talk about that. I ate great, worked out for 6 months straight, went on vacation, came back, all progress gone. See? And so you have to think about your triggers. It's not like any maliciousness. It's like, for this person who said that they worked out and then they relapsed, they would have to see what my triggers are. Maybe their triggers are like being in certain spaces. It's triggering for them. Not having a structure is triggering for them. So it triggers them to be irresponsible in all places. Because on vacation, you pretty much do what you want. You don't have to know demands. Like, you don't have to wake up to be to work here. You don't have to. So because they have no demands on them or no structure, they're triggered. Maybe this person who was eating on vacation, maybe they're one of them people who need a vacation itinerary. Like, you get up at this time, we going to eat breakfast, then we going to go skinny dipping here, then we going to go rock climbing back here, then we going to the club. Maybe they need that because it makes them feel, even though they're having fun and doing all the stuff they want to do, it makes them feel closer to home, so they're not tempted to throw all abandon out the window and just like, hey, forget it, So no, I don't want people to think that, but I want y'all to think, like, with these retrogrades, it actually questions your subjectivity. So how lucky are you? How innovative are you? With Neptune and Jupiter, you think about how much belief or morale do you actually have? How much do you actually believe in yourself? What Uranus is, how much are you into the rhythm of life? How much do you participate with life? With Mercury retrograde, how resourceful are you? How much purpose do you have? How much do you put your mind to proper use? These are all real things that you have to think. I think Saturn's in retrograde. So how structured and organized are you? They make you think about these things because as humans, like for the people who were here earlier in the earlier slides, we know from an astrological standpoint and how Mercury behaves, it can be corrupted. So the mind can be corrupted. And once the mind is corrupted, it can daggone near corrupt everything. So it's just questioning how much can you get out of your own point of view to see different point of views and to see the world in a different way. Or how much have you learned to see the world different? So some people have been working on being more positive, being making sure they have proper self-belief, making sure they think more creatively, making sure they be more spiritual. making sure they challenge any type of behaviors that they could have learned from childhood or from their family or from toxic lovers or whatever. But now we're here because these planets are all retrograde. Do you actually believe what you've been preaching? That's where we're at right now. So this is why it's important we plan and we be on point. So that way when we see the pattern, we know what to do. We know where not to go, and we know what things are for us. Any questions, guys? Feel free to ask, because this was a lot of information. Feel free to ask any type of questions you need to.
Yep. Y'all should definitely ask your questions, because this was a great slide, by the way. BMORE, you did excellent work. Also, remember that y'all can help support BMORE on her Cash App and donations, but also her Patreon. Her slides will be converted into PDFs and uploaded to her Patreon at the lowest tier, which I believe is $5. And then she'll also give exclusive books and also written material to people at the $10 tier. And then also people who join the $10 tier and up, they get discounts on astrology chart readings and different things like that. So definitely support, and definitely ask your questions right now as well before the show ends.
And guys, it doesn't have to be on this topic all the way, because I understand people are at different levels of trying to understand certain things. So if you have like a general question, like what is Venus, before we even get there, like I will do a brief explanation. But just let me know if you guys have any questions. Again, these notes will be turned into PDFs. It will be uploaded on the Patreon. So everyone's on the Patreon is going to get these notes for free. $99 as per the payment of what you pay for Patreon. But no, you guys get it. Y'all get the PDF. So they get notes and PDFs. All the stuff that I make goes right onto Patreon. All the books that I suggest goes right over to Patreon, and they get all these things for free, and then they can download them and look over them and just keep going and going and going. But this live again will be up here so you guys can like look at it, but all the people on Patreon gets the PDFs and everything. All right, if we don't have any questions, I'll see you guys next week. Just in case you guys want to know real quick, these are a list of all of the sources that I use to put this information together. If you would like to look up any of these websites or books, you can. So yeah, but I'll see you guys next week. We'll be discussing the new moon in Virgo. Please journal by this point, so that way when y'all start to craft your times and your days, y'all will have something to go on, so you'll have something on repeat that you have to go on, where you can map out. Because again, by next week you'll be able to see some funny looking things going on, where we're seeing very weird people, weird dynamics, haters, and if we're not careful, we can get trapped into drama. I'm not gonna lie, like there's a lot of positivity, but they can definitely get trapped into drama. So any questions? Are these books okay? The Llewellyn one is a book. The medical astrology one, that is a book. Fixed Stars is a website where it lists just fixed stars if you would like to just start looking at them. And then the last link at the bottom, I don't know if you guys can see it. Actually, I don't think you guys can see that one. I might have to type that in, because I think my little asteroid covers it up. But it's called 7 Days of Creation by astronoir.com. And that is what I was reading off of when we talked about the translation of the days of the weeks from Hebrew. So like the fiery star and all this other stuff. Because I think Shongo was in here earlier, so I think you heard me break down what the meanings of the stars were. Yeah. So this will be on Patreon, but I will put that on here just so you can have it. But it's called 7 Days of Creation by astronoid.com. And that is the article for that. Okay? Because I don't think you can see it. Let me see.
What are you trying to do?
My little asteroid covers up the bottom article that I put up here for them to read.
All right, let me fix that for you. Remember, I told you expert have technical stuff because you don't want to mess up what you're doing here. All right.
See, this last reference.
Right. Hold on. Auto the event. Click go live to start. I don't know what that's about. Are you even live still?
I'm still live.
Okay, let me exit this then.
But they
Did
can't.
you click on something?
I didn't click on nothing but my slides.
All right, I'm just making sure.
Mm-hmm.
There we go.
There we go.
I don't know where to go. All right, so how does it look now?
Okay.
All right, give them time, I guess, before we end the show. Give you
so
time
they can see it.
Yeah, 7 days of creation.
Yeah.
Okay, she has the website down there.
Okay.
Oh, you know what? I think I know what that's about.
Okay. Hopefully you guys can see it because I had lowered it so you guys could see the last one. But yeah, for Digital B, really try writing it down in your phone. Even if you do like a voice recording where you just say what happened in this audio, try that because you need to do it to see the pattern. So if you can't write it down, which I really get because writing can be really too much for people, try to put it in your notes on your phone. That's easy for you. If you need to set a timer saying, hey, jot down what happened today, like on some Moesha-ish. You know how Moesha wrote down, or Doug, he wrote down everything that happened during this day. You need to. And if you can't, you could just voice record yourself saying what happened that day. Like, hey, every Wednesday I'll be tripping down the steps and it be the last step. That's something that you can do. But all right, guys, I'll see you guys next week. We'll talk about the Virgo new moon, and you guys will slowly start to create your itineraries through this month. Peace.
Peace out. Also, I was about to start trouble and call somebody the B word. Nobody in the chat. Political person that's annoying on some Tupac stuff, but you know.
Thank you. I'm so sorry. Noisy neighbors.
Peace.